Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another podcast. The two sides of game. And we talk, in this space, on this channel in particular, my main conversation is masculine self-development, of course. That's always primary, that's always underlying, but the game, and I'll put quotations on that, of man gets women. Now, if people don't like that game, it's just the social dynamic, or the dynamics rather, of man gets woman. Let's be real on it. Let's be very clear. If you want something else, you want deep thought or business, I got other channels for that. And if you don't want all of that, you got other YouTube content creators. Let me be clear on that. But on this channel, we're discussing, man gets woman. Very simple. Now, understand that. Now, many people will use game, whether you use it seriously or, as slang. It's still whatever strategy that you use to get women. Now, there's two sides of it. There's always two sides of it. There's the social side and the sexual side. And let's be clear about it. Let's be clear. They're two sides of the same coin. They are two sides. You can't separate one from the other, even though many people try to do so. They'll focus on the social side, whether that is through dating coaches or just people just commenting on relationships. They'll focus on all the social stuff and, how people are interacting with people publicly. But then if you look at the sexual side, that's something totally different. That's when you get into the sexual shadow world, which is but it's still there. You can't, and the thing is, you really can't separate them, because how a person behaves behind closed doors will actually affect how they interact with people socially. For example, let me use a great example of that. Okay, say you have a woman who, she's deep in the shadow world. She's deep in there, and she's looking for that type of guy who can, bring her that pleasure. When she interacts with men socially, that's who she's going to try to interact with. Now, of course, if she's on a job or in a professional setting, she's going to interact who she got to. But, when she get off that job, even in social environments, whether it's the restaurant, the club, events of that, the men that she's going to be receptive to is on a sexual thing. So you can't separate it. But nevertheless, there's still two sides, because what happens is the overwhelming majority of people, they'll tend to focus on one or the other. They'll focus on one or the other. Like many people, of course, focus on the social side. So they'll say, okay, what they seeing on the surface. Or they're talking about, well, okay, how can I meet women? Or where can I take them for a date? What type of relationship we're going to be on, because, most of the time we see the social side of relationships, the visible side, a man and woman interacting in public, a man and woman, they might be doing some stuff together, may even get married, have kids, get the family and everything, but you see that, right? And a lot of people focus on that, but then a lot of people don't deal with the sexual side, because you have plenty of sexless marriages out there, or relationships where they look cool but they ain't really having sex, or they waiting, or especially in the sexless marriage thing. I need to cover that, because there's a lot of people and they'll think, oh yeah, I got married and everything, but there's a lot of guys, they'll tell you, their wife might have sex with them once a week, and there's a lot of women, especially, once they get that guy, maybe a baby from him, they weren't really sexually attracted to him at first. And then they step out. Both parties step out. And the person they deal with on a sexual level may not be the type of person they'll see, right? And even, how some people say, some people especially when they looking at different dating coaches or something like that. And I'm using this particular example because people always talk about receipts and all of that. Or, oh, man, show me, right? And then, in fact, or even how they'll judge somebody. They say, well, I seen this guy talking to all these women and everything. But that's a social thing. It's important, but, you don't know what's going on in the bedroom. Because here's an ironic thing. A lot of the guys who got legitimately high sex counts, and all of that, you might never see them with a woman in public. Reason why? Because they're only dealing with them in the bedroom. It could be for myriad reasons. They could be just the side man to several married women or women with boyfriends. They could be the side man, so they ain't gonna be seen with them. Or they could be just a dude just running through different women, and publicly they want to be seen without it. Now I've seen that situation. I still never forget. I've been in a couple social circles where it was the women bragging about being with a certain man, and the man is like trying to be like quiet and everything. In fact, usually, as a rule of thumb, if I'm in a group and a bunch of men like talking about who they've been with and everything, I just look casually over at the person being real quiet. That's usually a person who's waiting, because one thing, and this goes into the sexual underworld. A lot of guys who are really doing their thing, you'll never know it. But you would have to like be a part of that world to know it. But whatever the case, these are two sides of the game. And see, here's the thing. You can't separate them. You really can't separate, even though people try. You got to have a balance between them, because the sexual thing affects who you deal with socially. Now, especially with women. Now, I said this in a podcast a while ago, and this is something that was mentioned in the book Awakening the Master Masculine by Master Yao and Yamache Morris. And it's something I fully agree with, fully endorse. Every time a woman's looking at a man, I say the majority of women, 99% of women, when they're looking at a man, even if it's for something that has nothing to do with relationships or sex, they still evaluating him sexually. So they could be, in a store in a store just looking for something, buying something, and they'll see the sales clerk, and they looking for that handbag or whatever they looking for, but they also checking them out. They could be a human resources person looking to hire somebody. That dude come in, boom. It's everything. It's everything. There's always a sexual angle to it, right? In fact, let me give a little story. I was in Pentagon City last week, right? Walking around. And I noticed there were several kiosks where you had either young men or young women trying to get people to buy like some type of lotions and everything. But their approach is always sexual in nature. So they were actually combining both sides. Yeah, socially it was about business and stuff, but they were using sexual energy to, get their customers. So it's always a connection, and you can't really suppress one or the other. You can't suppress one or the other. So, and that's important to understand. That's important. Yes, you want to meet them and date them. If you, as a man, you want to be able to do that social thing, interact with them socially. You want to meet them, be out in public, be seen with them. But then behind closed doors, you need to be able to knock that joint out the box. You have to turn her on and turn her out. And I know some people, they don't want to talk about it. They thinking about like, oh, well, if I got money, I'm doing all this good stuff. Yeah, good for you. But, a vagina's still working. And quite frankly, your dick's still working, hopefully. So, but, what you get a lot of times is a focus. Well, publicly, most of the focus is really on the social stuff. You got very limited focus on the sexual side. But regardless, they still part of the same thing. You have to deal with both sides to really be viable out here. Very important thing. So anyway, just wanted to hit upon that briefly. So anyway, y'all have a good day now. Peace and blessings.